Hello and welcome to Reprieve Media CIC's Day 4 preview of the Cheltenham Festival. We're going to stick quickly to, we're running out of time, it's going to be close today as to whether we get it out in time for the first race. We need to. So without further ado, we're going to hand over to Steve Allpress, who is going to run through his selections for today. Steve, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here, Paul, all ready to go for the final day.
Superb. Welcome, Steve. And if you'd like to start with your selections, please, sir.
The first race of Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival is the Triumph Hurdle for juvenile hurdlers. I have two selections in this race. These are two horses I've been with throughout the season, and I feel they're going into today's race in top form. Apple Shakira from the Nicky Henderson stable with Barry Geraghty on board. Apple Shakira, she made a debut over hurdles against a highly touted Philip Hopp's horse called Gumball. She dispatched that horse with good authority on that occasion. That day, she's gone back to Cheltenham twice, and she's won two further races in good style. But both on softer ground, probably similar ground to which she'll be encountering today. The word is from connections that she's progressed nicely throughout the season, and she's in tip-top order for today's renewal. Barry Geraghty's on board. He, from what I've been hearing in recent days, is that he's going to ride her with a lot of confidence and produce her late. She's obviously gets the mare's allowance, which will also be beneficial. And I think she's the horse to beat in this race. Surprisingly, it's a small field, but it's a selective field. There's probably 3 or 4 horses in this race worthy of winning the race. However, my two selections are horses that I think just have that little bit more class than probably the other opposition in the race. So yeah, as I said, Apple Shakira is my first selection. My second selection in the Triumph Hurdle is obviously another horse I've been with, as mentioned, throughout the season. This one goes into the race with a lightly raced profile. The horse is Stormy Island from the Willie Mullins yard. She won in breathtaking fashion back in December at the Fairy House. I think she ran out a good 50 plus lengths winner on that occasion. The form is obviously questionable. However, that said, to the visual eye, she was mighty impressive that day, and she couldn't have done no more than she did. She missed her engagement at the Dublin Festival due to a slight setback. However, Connection soon decided that it wasn't nothing serious and that they were going to just take her to the festival fresh. She has a front running way of going, so expect her to be out there early on making all, and it's just probably a matter of how far she gets really. She's well touted, obviously, like a lot of the Willie Mullins young hurdlers, and it's a big step up in class today. However, visually, you couldn't have been more impressed last time out, and she would certainly be on my radar. She is my alternative selection to Apple Shakira, based on probably hype and potential more than strict line of form. So those are my two selections for the opening race of Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival. Apple Shakira is actually my nap selection on Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival, and Stormy Island is my each way selection on Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival. Very unusual for me to go with two horses within the same race. However, on this occasion, I feel both horses have top class credentials. And although Apple Shakira is my number one nap selection, I don't see Stormy Island being too far behind. Those are my selections, my nap and each way selections in the Triumph Hurdle, and my selections for Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival. The second race on Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival was the County Hurdle. I've had a look through, and obviously, like usual, it's a tough competitive race with a number of horses that could win the race. I've decided to leave this one alone and just stick with these graded races today. Race 3 on day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival is the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. A race run over 3 miles, obviously for novice hurdlers. This is a jam-packed field here with potential star quality for potential future chasers. My selection for this race, I actually have 2, but my number 1 selection for this race is the Nicky Henderson trained Santini. Santini is a horse held in high regard by connections. The horse hasn't done nothing wrong to date. Is stepping up in trip today, which I think will suit the horse. A slight question mark might be the softer ground. Word is that the horse would appreciate better ground. However, it did win on slower ground last time out. On that occasion, stable jockey Nico de Boyenville actually opted to ride a companion that day. However, it didn't stop Santini, and he ran out a very, very impressive winner from a horse that ran very well in Wednesday's Balli Ward Novices Hurdle, Black Hop from the Tom George stable. I think on that form alone, that would give Santini a very good chance in today's race. It's not usually a race that benefits lightly raced horses. However, I'm going to go against that statistic for today's race, and I'm going to opt for this lightly raced improving horse. They see this horse, connections see this horse as being a future chaser, a staying chaser, and hopefully today will be a stepping stone to bigger things. So Santini is my number 1 selection in the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. He's currently around a 4-1 mark. My second selection for the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle is the Henry de Bromhead trained Chris's Dream. Chris's Dream is a horse also lightly raced, that won last time out in a non-event really. He won by a large margin victory on really bottomless ground, probably similar ground to which he'll encounter today, maybe not quite as bad. He's another horse that's held in high regard by connections, and I'll be hoping he runs another big race. He's a free going type, so he's one of these horses that we're going to see on the front end of the race, a bit like Monolly last year really. Hopefully he'll run a big race. He's my selection. Chris's Dream is my selection, my alternative selection for the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. The 3:30 at Cheltenham on day 4 is the blue ribbon event of the whole Cheltenham Festival. It's the Cheltenham Gold Cup over 3 miles, 2.5 furlongs. I've gone with 2 horses in this race. I've been with these horses from the beginning of the season, and I feel that today's race is going to bring out the best in these 2 horses. My number 1 selection, and a fairly confident selection, is the Nicky Henderson trained Might Bite. I've followed Might Bite since last year's novice chase campaign. He went to the Cheltenham, which is now called the Corto Star Novices Chase. He went to the Cheltenham and he was running a big race before he come down at the last. From that moment, I had my eye on this horse as a potential Gold Cup horse of the future. He then went to Cheltenham in the RSA Chase, where he was an impressive winner. Obviously, he wandered around after the last and almost threw away the race, but he did get back up and run on strongly in the last 100 yards to to deprive his stable companion Whisper of victory. Since then, Mike Bite's gone on and done nothing wrong. He won last year's King George Chase. Some say in workmanlike fashion. There's people have questioned the form with horses like Double Shuffle running him close. However, on that occasion, Mike Bite and Bristol Demai took each other on up front, and I just feel that the way the race was ran resulted in Mike Bite's visual performance not being quite as impressive as it would have been if a Bristol Demai wasn't in the race. I have a feeling the way the race was run was the reason why Mike Bite wasn't visually as impressive. That said, he still beat the likes of Fox Norton, Thistlecrack and Bristol Demai, and maintained his unbeaten run while standing up over fences. I know Connections going into this race have a lot of confidence in him. He's done nothing wrong at home. He's one of the 2 or 3 horses within the stable that they hold in the highest regard, and I just have this feeling that they feel he's as good as I think he is. So yeah, he's obviously going to be running on soft ground, which some people have questioned whether it'd suit him or not. However, I don't see any reason why he won't operate on it. The ground is obviously the trip is obviously a slight question mark. However, as I mentioned previously, he did run on quite strongly in the RSA Chase after wandering around vigorously inside, from the back of the last. On that evidence, you'd have to think that he would get the extra 2.5 furlongs. I think the main worry and only worry for me really would be his antics from the back of the last really. There's obviously like a little exit that goes to like the funnel, and obviously you never know quite what's going to happen, whether he'll opt to like run out again. However, they'll be well aware of this time, and they'll try and make sure this doesn't become an issue. That would be my only concern really regarding Mike Bite today. I think he's got the ability to win the race. I personally feel he'll stay the trip, and I personally feel he will go on the ground. Although he probably would prefer better ground, I do feel he'll operate on the ground. So he is my selection. Obviously not my nap selection, but he is still a fairly confident selection, and I will not be deserting him at this stage. Mike Bite's my number 1 selection for the Gold Cup. My second selection for the Gold Cup is the Jessica Harrington trained Our Duke. Our Duke won the Irish Grand National last year, stepping up in trip for the first time, and he duly obliged in a very, very good performance. He jumped from fence to fence and didn't put a foot wrong that day. However, things haven't quite gone to plan since then. Early on in the season, he ran very disappointing, and he come back and it appeared that he had back problems. However, since then, the back problems seem to have been resolved. He's obviously been taken away to the vets and had a MOT, and he appears to be back where he should be now. He come back just in the new year. He was running a good race. However, he seemed to blew up on the day after making an error at the second last, which put pay to his chances. Since then, he's gone to a prep run against the RSA Chase winner, presenting Percy, over a shorter trip than today, and giving weight away, and he won well. He's a big long scopy horse that should appreciate today's conditions. He does tend to make the occasional error at his fences, and that would probably be the main worry. However, with a clear round of jumping, it's hard to see him not running a big race. He's certainly one that I would feel rather confident that he'd finish at, certainly in the frame at least. So my alternative selection is Our Duke for the Cheltenham Gold Cup. The 4:10 at Cheltenham today is the Fox Hunters Chase for amateur riders. My first selection is Burning Ambition. The horse comes into the race in very good form. He ran second to Gil Gamboa last time in Ireland and was far from disgraced. On current form, Burning Ambition would be the horse to beat. He's one of the youngest horses in the race and he's still entitled to improvement. So therefore he is my number one selection in today's Fox Hunters Chase. Burning Ambition is my selection for the Fox Hunters. I wouldn't say he's a confident selection. He's probably more just a hopeful than confident selection. He's a horse that travels well throughout his races. I have a slight question mark when push comes to shove whether he finds as much as he should. However, I do think he's a lot better than these horses in the race, and I expect him to travel very well throughout. My tentative each way selection in the Fox Hunters Chase is the Paul Nicholls trained Union East. Union East is a horse that's running high quality graded chases. Obviously now he finds himself in the Fox Hunters. He's a horse that seems to appreciate softer conditions, and I think the trip and obviously the nature of this race will probably see him to his best. So yeah, Union East is my tentative each way selection for the Fox Hunters Chase.
Superb, sir. Thank you very much. I will just run you through mine. Fridays is always a day, really, I'm very nervous about getting involved. It's a day that I've not had very much luck on in the past. But saying that, it's a Cheltenham preview show, so I'm going to try and do my best. Triumph Hurdle, 1:30, tricky race, I think. There's one in there, I think, that could be running well at a fair price. That is the Gordon Elliott trained Far Class, ridden by Jack Kennedy. That's 8-1. It's number one on the card. It's actually had 2 seconds behind some well-regarded opponents over in Ireland earlier in the season, and I just feel that if there is any vulnerabilities in the ones at the front of the market, then Far Class could take advantage. 2:10 County Handicap Hurdle, tricky race. James Bowen hasn't really paid off for us this week yet. We thought he might do. He might still. With Jenkins as a horse he's won on in the past, but obviously having won that handicap in the past, it means it's gone up a bit in the weights. It could be vulnerable, but we feel that with Mr. Bowen being good value for its £3 claim, we feel, although he rode it when it won last time, we feel he could still get improvement out of the horse. At 33-1, it's a big price. It will need to improve to figure in the results. But let's just see how he gets on. Another one in that race is the Wiley-owned Marie de Vie. If you look at its form first time out in this country, when it beat the St Leger 4 and the winner of, I think it was, the Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot, Aidan O'Brien's sword fighter, first time out, then we thought we might be onto a horse then that was actually quite good. But it hasn't worked out. It's still a horse in its own right. It hasn't worked out as well. It's not gone to the top level. It was beaten by Bapome next time out last year. That sort of put an end to its Triumph Hurdle hopes. So it hasn't really been deemed good enough either to run in the mares' hurdle races, or it's been deemed well handicapped enough to take its chance in this race. Its form this year, second in a competitive handicap hurdle first time out, looks okay. But since then, it's been beaten in a race I think it really should have won at odds on, and then it has won a similar race, a low quality, I think, listed race for mares, up in trip. Is its form good enough to get involved in this race? I'm not 100% sure it is. But hopefully the Wileys will get a good run for their money this time. And it'll be the first time this week that they have. Most people who know me, though, will say that this is a biased selection. And they are well within their rights to say that. A very, very tentative biased selection at that. On to the 250, the Albert Bartlett. There's another one here, another wily horse in here. Balli Ward, number 1 on the card. If you remember, it's the one that was actually beat As You Were, who we flagged up in the Gold Cup the other day. There's no graded race form whatsoever in the profile of this horse. It's only ever had 4 runs in its life. So we don't really know if it's a graded horse or not. The price kind of reflects that. 22 to 1. You know, taking a bit of a guess. But at that price, and with the yard's record of producing 3-mile hurdlers, we feel it's worth taking a little risk at 22 to 1, just to see what happens with the horse today. As again, though, probably a blatantly biased selection, considering really the horse number 18 on the card, Santini, whose form really, when beating Black Op, a horse that has got closer to Samcro than anything else in its career, puts Santini in obvious good stead for today. He's a bit short for a race like this, at 3 to 1, but we feel that his form when beating Black Ops, who's run behind Samcro, is superb form. So he's worth a look just for that at 3 to 1. Maybe a tentative selection though, but one we're more confident about than we have been for some of ours this week. 3:30 the Gold Cup. Well, it's got the 4 to 1 the field, and we feel that it might be a false market because the favourite, a horse called Might Bite. You look at the horse on the form, you see all these ones next to it, you think, oh, what a bomb-proof proposition this is. I'll go mortgage my house now and back it. But this horse has run out of the race. It's nearly run out in last year's Cheltenham Festival. You do not know whether the horse is going to concentrate on its race or it's going to be looking elsewhere and looking at ways of running off the course. Excuse me, it nearly did last year. So 4 to 1 the field, with that rogue of a horse in there, we can't really form any opinion on the race at all. If you can't trust the favourite in a race, what can you trust in the race? So we've left the race totally alone. It's a non-race in our opinion. The 4:10, the Fox Hunters, quickly. Alan Fleming, we fancied Telly East yesterday. That was a non-runner due to the ground. As You Were, didn't really run fire at all in the Gold Cup, but we'll know where we stand with that when we see more of Balli Ward later. But the Alan Fleming trained and Katie Walsh ridden Fox Rock, number 6 on the card, is our very, very, very tentative selection in a race that we don't really like getting involved in normally. We'd have left the race alone. It would have been a non-race for us if Mr. Fleming didn't have one in it. With amateur horses ridden by amateur jockeys, that's worth clarifying. These horses are fox hunters. That's the clue. They have to be registered with whoever's in charge of fox hunting as a horse to take part in fox hunts, to qualify for this race, and then run in a few fox hunters chases that are around the country and in Ireland to take part in the race. So we're going to give a very, very, very tentative selection for Fox Rock, ridden by Katie Walsh and trained by Alan Fleming. 4:50, Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle, impossible race in our opinion. Well, you only have to look at the shenanigans that goes on in this race. When Michael O'Leary wins the race last year with his horse, where he said it was the worst horse he'd ever had prior to the race, and for it to go and win a race at Cheltenham, that is how honest these people are. So you can't really believe a word they say about anything regarding racing. They will pull your wool over the eyes of the punters at the first possible opportunity, most of them. It is worth noting DS Debiefs, but this time Mr. Bowen doesn't get his allowance in this race because it's a race for only amateur jockeys. So he's actually one of the more experienced jockeys in this race. But DS Debiefs, number 16 on the card, must have some sort of a squeak. And we also fancy the look of number 20 on the card, Melrose Boy, the Rooney-owned horse. They've been a bit unlucky this year, I think, with their horse. Last Samurai ran well in the, the cross-country race the other day. But their main hope will be caught Mr. Festival, a horse that won the race at the festival last year, which would have been heavily involved in. It had possibly won the JLT last year, that was run yesterday, that the mare won. You always know it's a bad graded race when the mare starts winning against the geldings. The mare's allowance obviously helps them do that. Their allowance is there for a reason, because they're inferior horses, you know. So Melrose Boy, we quite like the look of in that race at 16 to 1. But we must emphasise that those 2 selections there are very, 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 very tentative selections. The 5:30 is a race we do not like whatsoever as well. You heard our opinion on 2 mile chasing the other day. Sprint chasing, as we call it. We don't really like to get involved with it as a betting proposition. Animals running round at full speed and jumping fences isn't really the most predictable of environments. So we would not recommend that anybody even bothers looking at this race. Obviously, something has to win it. We've not even looked at the runners of it though, so we couldn't give you one option for that race. It's a non-race in our opinion. So that concludes our picks for the Cheltenham Festival 2018. Right, we really are on the last stretch now of the Cheltenham Festival when we start looking at next year's Cheltenham Festival. And with that in mind, Steve has kindly just come back on the line with us to tell us about his first bet for next year's Cheltenham Festival. So without further ado, Steve, I'm going to clear the floor for you. This could be some pivotal information that you're hearing here on Double Handful.
One of my highlights of the week this week was the Balli Ward novices hurdle on Wednesday, where we saw the highly touted Samcro once again deliver a tremendous performance. I felt during the race things went slightly against Samcro. I felt that he was a little bit lit up early on. Obviously, he jumped the path. Black Hot made an error at one hurdle and seemed to knock Samcro around a little bit. So I just feel during the race things didn't quite go right for Samcro. However, his class certainly did shine through, and he's a horse with abundance of talent, and he's one that we're really going to look forward to in future chases. In regards to Samcro and where do I think he'll go down the line, I'm not quite sure. If he was mine, I'd be running him probably, or aiming him certainly, at probably the JLT or the RSA chase next year. The race that I'd probably opt out of the 2 would be the JLT, because I think he has that mixture of pace and stamina and class, and I just feel that race, although it's not quite a prestigious race as the other 2, as the RSA or the Arkle, I do feel that that is the race that probably suits him best. Therefore, I've actually already backed Samcro anti-post with William Hill at 3-1 to win any race at the 2019 Cheltenham Festival. Obviously, it's a year away, and it does look a little bit short price. However, from previous experience, 11 months down the line, it could look a big price. I'm pretty sure if things go right for Samcro, over the next 11 months or so, he'll be turning up at Cheltenham a lot shorter than 3-1, that's for sure. Obviously, it's a long time between now and then, so a lot of things can happen. But regardless of prices or anything, Samcro is a horse that the racing world are going to look forward to for a number of years. Thanks for having me on the show this week, Paul. We've had lots of fun, and I'll speak to you again sometime in the future. Thanks for having us. Bye, Paul.